Hello, good morning. Cool. So I'm Cheyenne. I'm a partner on the investment team at Multicoin. Excited about decentralized physical infrastructure networks, proud investors in Pipe. David, do you want to introduce yourself very quickly and then we can jump into what Pipe is?
Yeah, I'm David Rodas. I'm CEO of Permissionless Labs, the maker of Pipe Network. And yeah, really glad to have you join for this talk.
Awesome. Cool. David, what is Pipe?
So a pipe is it's a crazy idea of basically a decentralized CDN using hyperlocal nodes. So the nodes are like essentially in your neighborhood, and it brings like the lowest latency possible. So within 10 to 50 miles, you're seeing single digit latency. And it's truly amazing because all traditional CDNs are on average 150 miles from the user. So you're seeing like 30 to 100 milliseconds of latency. Um, it's just some nerd stuff. Basically, the way we're engineering it is traditional CDNs won't be able to compete. So,
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit more. Like what do you gain from having a distributed network
mhm.
and building out the supply side in the way that you are building it out? Cloudflare exists, Akamai exists. There's tens of CDN providers in the world. Feels to me like people are, the world's chugging along fine. Why do we need to distribute it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the CDNs are great, and I've used all of them. I've ran Olympics, NFL broadcasting before, and they all work perfect. But there's definitely edge scenarios that they cannot handle, and the cost is pretty stagnant. Like if you look at Cloudflare, you've got to be rich to basically start a video streaming startup already, or super well funded. The cost is tremendous. So you know, leveraging like the coordination of blockchain and payments to like hyper local nodes, you can basically bring the bandwidth cost very close to zero, or the true cost of it.
Right. So this is usually the sell of these distributed virtual infrastructure networks is where you'll be able to give you quality of service on par with that of a centralized player, but at a structurally lower cost. And it sounds like that is, one of the core sort of value propositions of building out this network. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. We previously built real-time video encoding. So if you watch, NFL football, so we know what real time is, and we've set a very hard goal on ourselves of delivering the data in 3 milliseconds. Maybe a little bit of speed of light buffering in there, and essentially, unless a centralized CDN comes out and builds like a hyperscaler fleet of pop nodes the way we're doing it, they're going to have 10x latency or more.
So tell me how we should think about what the supply side looks like here. What is a node? What are sort of the minimum specs you need to run a node? How do you think about performance, reliability, all that good stuff?
Yeah, it's perfect. So a lot of people come in, they're very hesitant. They think, oh, my computer's only on a few times a day, or I want to run in a data center. And luckily, we can accommodate all the different types of node runners out there. So we could have people running in a small data center, and those help feed out the hyperlocal nodes. If people go on and offline, that's okay, because almost all video infrastructure now is meant to like handle failure seamlessly and switch over without, any buffering delays. So essentially we've been again blessed of like the pioneers previously of building like robust infrastructure, and it just makes it really nice. Today we've wrapping up our DevNet and going to launch testnet in a few weeks. I've been overwhelmed with like the participation and the node side. Like this morning I checked and we had over 80,000 nodes, like just everywhere. It was very humbling to see.
How do people sign up?
So you just go to our website and you click on the docs link, and you download a client. Unfortunately, we made a little barrier of entry at the first, so it's Linux only. For testnet, we'll launch Mac and Windows, but you just download it, self-registers the node. It basically, if you've ran any Linux service, this couldn't be easier. Like self-install.
Well, it sounds like you're putting up barriers and people are breaking them down pretty quickly. So it's great. Um, okay, so you've got all this footprint. You have these nodes that are live on the network right now. How should I think about like what happens to a packet when it goes through the network? It sounds like a lot of the secret sauce and all of this is orchestration and how you think about kind of moving things around. Is there a simple way you can describe like what the system is doing for for someone that is a customer?
Yeah, essentially, say if you're running a website already today, if you've got some video data stored on Amazon S3 or basically anywhere, we can connect to that and then fan out the deployment of those packets across our global cache layer. And you get hyper accelerated delivery of the data to the users. So, and on top of that, you get all the amazing security parameters of like Cloudflare. It's one of their biggest selling points, I think, outside of the CDN is that, they protect your web server. We've got a fleet of servers larger than Cloudflare now. So essentially, we could handle like larger denial of service attacks than Cloudflare.
And so tell me a little bit about how you think about the first set of customers.
Mhm.
It sounds like you have a production grade network either ready today or will be ready very soon. Who do you think you're going to go after first?
It's a great question. So, I'm just like a dumb engineer basically, and I come from the video encoding industry, and we made the most boring tech ever. Like everyone in the world uses our tech, but no one knows it. So essentially, my whole network is Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Video, and that's what we've essentially crafted this for. You know, I worked at Amazon Video and we used 5 or 6 CDNs already, even though we ran one of the largest ones in the world, still wasn't sufficient for coverage. We would spend hundreds of millions a month on third-party CDNs. So, talking with these guys, I can go back to Amazon Video and say, "Hey, give me your top 1,000 worst performing cities." And then we can incentivize node runners there and immediately get product market fit. And these guys they're so thrilled about it because you look in places like Kansas City and very remote areas, you know, you're talking like 3 or 400 miles from the user to the CDN. It's tremendous latency.
And so is the right way to think about it for these customers that they all have multiple providers and then, on a per region or piece of content basis, they may be routing those packets across any, given one of those at a time? How should we think about how customers like, end up selecting a vendor and where they actually, how the usage actually happens?
Yeah, I think so. Any streaming company that's got over 10 million users is going to be multi CDN at this point. If you're smaller, you're basically price sensitive, which again is amazing because we can come out and compete with these really tiny, strange things like Bunny CDN and things that
Mhm.
and we looked at the price and at first we're like, how does this work? And then we look at our pipe economics, we're like, wow, that's expensive. And traditionally, like if you go to like Crunchyroll or Amazon Video, they'll do a ton of tests and they'll look at the latency and decide we'll route so much traffic through, Akamai through Manhattan, things like that. And essentially they'll do the same test with us. And what's what's great about us is like we can put out bounties on chain and have those fulfilled to get node runners in those areas when we need more nodes or latency or bandwidth improved. I think from my little research, there's never been like an on-chain bounty that's went unfulfilled at this point.
Yeah, bounties are great. If you put money in front of people and say that you can get it by doing this, most people generally do it.
Yeah.
um, so, okay, that's great. How should we think about the different types of use cases that you can go after, right? I understand that streaming live media may be very different from streaming recorded media.
Mhm.
Music may have different properties than photos, may have different properties than videos, may have different properties than text. And so, like, how do you think about the type of media itself? And kind of what is the network uniquely equipped to handle in that subset?
It's a great question. I think because we've been through like streaming media, worst case scenarios, basically we built this to handle the battlefield we've come from. So, we can definitely handle live streaming out of the gate, which I think is very unique because it is much more latency sensitive. We just measure latency in all components of our stack. And on the other hand, like archive video, you know, places in Korea, for example, Twitch had to dismantle the archive because the bandwidth service fees were so high. Photos, things like that is like that's just an easy layup for us. So if people want to start pushing over, you know, backing up their archive of photos, backing up their NFTs, any of that, we're super equipped for out of the gate.
So latency is, you know, pretty important to distributed trading systems as well. Is there a world where you guys are powering, landing transactions or, relay services or RPC services, moving shreds around on Solana? Is that on the table?
I think it's not our North Star at the moment for sure, like just delivering bits the quickest, IBRL. But that being said, like we are slowly archiving the tip of Solana. We've been serving the snapshots to validators for about 2 months or so. And, we see like 100 to 500 terabytes a day downloaded of snapshots. So it allows these validators to boot up very quickly. And I do think what you're kind of hinting at is like, we don't want to run an RPC service or any of that, but if there's particular like industries like DeFi or, these really elegant high frequency traders, technically they can get the data the fastest from us. It's not the market we envisioned when we started building it, which is kind of the market we're finding ourselves in.
So you have one degree of supply already built out, and that's pre-testnet.
Mm.
How do you think about what the supply side of the network's going to look like in 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months, specifically in terms of number of nodes, profile of node, and then geography more broadly?
Yeah, I've been shocked. One of the things that was most surprising to me is that the geography sync up of the United States has been the most laggard at this point. Like we've got decent coverage, but there's still a few states out there with 0 nodes in it. And
Mhm.
we haven't incentivized or put bounties out yet. So I'm really surprised. Europe is very nicely covered. Another area also is greatly covered is India. And that's fascinating because India technically has the most expensive bandwidth on earth. So there's a lot of opportunity there given we've got tremendous saturation. I think from my perspective, if we've gotten 80,000 nodes at DevNet, it's very likely this becomes one of the largest distributed systems on earth. So I could see this 6, 12 months, pushing 1 million, 2 million nodes.
And so maybe this is a little bit more far out, but one of the things that we think about with these distributed networks is this idea of pricing these commodities in real time and pricing them on chain and creating, a dynamic market structure for something that is traditionally centrally priced. Um, I imagine in the early stages you're going to be pricing things yourself, but do you see is that a version of that world? The live dynamic auction sort of thing for a unit of bandwidth. Is that kind of the world you're heading towards, or how should we think about pricing in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're pretty, focused on just the engineering side. So we've looked at and studied DeepIn quite a bit. And there's been some great like pioneers in this space, and Multicoin as well invented this mechanism called like burn mint equilibrium, and it essentially allows for like price discovery. There's two mechanisms is like the bandwidth credit, and then the other component of it. So essentially the market will immediately figure out the pricing there. We'll put some static parameters on the bandwidth credit, but as far as like swapping in and out to use pipe, we'll just allow the market to price that out on day one. Like,
Sweet. Well, look, I'm super excited to see Pipe go into the testnet and then eventually mainnet. We're running up on time here, so is there anything that you want to share about where people can learn more or get involved with Pipe?
yeah, it'd be great. So if you go just pipe.network today, you click on the documentation link and you can download the Node client today and get started. You can work up a nice reputation score, and that'll be carried forward in the testnet in a few weeks.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, David.